Welcome to my first ever breakdown video, focusing on Season 3, Episode 2 of The Mandalorian, The Mines of Mandalore. It feels amazing to have Mando back. This episode finally showcased the return to Mandalore and was action-packed with phenomenal moments. The episode begins on Tatooine during Bunta Eve and shows Peli Motto talking to a Rodian customer about fixing his speeder. Little does he know she is deceiving him. The parts to his speeder were stolen by Jawas she was secretly working with, thus allowing for an easy payout. As the Jawas bring out the parts, Mando and Grogu arrive in the modified N-1 Naboo starfighter. Peli happily greets them as she has a great bond with Grogu from past encounters. Grogu jumps and flips off the ship into her arms. This displayed how his powers in the Force and training with Luke have developed his skills. Recently, Jon Favreau even stated that Grogu was actually with Luke for a 2-year time period before reuniting with Mando. Once in Peli's arms, Grogu seems to be progressing in his communication skills as well, by making noises in response to her. Din gets out of the ship and asks her for a droid part he is in search of, an IG memory circuit, to re-establish IG-11 to his caretaking programming. Although this part is out of commission and even the Jawas cannot obtain it. Luckily for Din, Peli has an alternative option. She gives him a sales pitch for R5. This R5 unit is actually the same one from Episode 4, A New Hope. Jawas had sold R5 to Luke and his Uncle Owen, but his motivator blew, which led to an exchange for R2-D2 in his place. At first, Din is hesitant to take the astromech droid, as he wants something rated for spelunking to test the atmosphere of Mandalore and ensure the air is safe to breathe. Ultimately, he ends up taking it after Peli offers him a deal. R5 is then seen entering the droid port as the new adventure is about to begin. Mando and Grogu take off during the Bunta Week festivities en route to Mandalore for Din to be forgiven by the Creed for his transgressions of removing his helmet. As they get to Mandalore, Din explains a brief history of the planet to Grogu, involving what he heard it once looked like and the importance to its people. He also points out the moon of Mandalore that he grew up on, Concordia. It used to be a province of Mandalore during the Clone Wars, and where Death Watch originated under Pre Vizsla. On the ship's Navi computer, Din points out Kalevala, a planet in the Mandalore system that is the homeworld of House Kryze. This is where they visited Bo-Katan in the previous episode. The moments of Din teaching Grogu the Mandalorian ways was another instance demonstrating their deep connection. They then descend down into the atmosphere of Mandalore. After flying through the thunderous clouds, the ship clears the sky. Mandalore's surface appeared entirely crystallized from the fusion bombing that occurred at the Empire's hand. It even impacted the magnetic field of the planet, resulting in outside communication being cut off. Alone they land and force R5 to travel and take samples of the air quality, although the droid disappears off the scope. Mando leaves the ship with his helmet pressurized to find R5. He enters a cave and at the end of the path comes upon the ruins of the great city of Mandalore. Although as he looks out, creatures surprise attack him. We later learn in the episode from Bo-Katan that they are Alamites, wanting to kill for the next meal. He defends himself yet becomes surrounded. At this time, he pulls out the Darksaber. His usage of it reveals the saber is still heavy, and it's apparent he continues to struggle with wielding it. In the animated show, Star Wars Rebels, we learn from Kanan Jarrus that the Darksaber contains energy that constantly flows through the crystal. Therefore, the one utilizing it must master their thoughts and actions to fuel proper energy to the blade for easier usage. Din has not yet learned how to effectively do so. Despite this, he is able to defeat the creatures and find R5. He returns to the ship with the astromech and is able to get an analysis of the air toxicity. To his surprise, the sample readings come back safe. Grogu is then able to go with Din in search of the living waters beneath the mines of Mandalore. They travel down to the depths of the planet at the Civic Center. It was very cool to see this part of Mandalore in live action for the first time. The complexity of the city was always an amazing sight in the Clone Wars. As they make their way down to the mines, creatures lurk in the shadows as they try to navigate the area. Din spots a passageway leading further down. After he enters, he discovers a Mandalorian helmet in the old wreckage. As he inspects it, a robotic apparatus captures him. Grogu watches from the distance and follows the cybernetic machine to its lair. An unknown creature with one prominent eye who is operating the machine exits and approaches Din. It tosses his blaster and Darksaber aside, and seems to be preparing Din for something else. It walks away, and Grogu takes this opportunity to try to save Din. As he begins to use the Force to open the cage that Din is trapped inside, it causes a noise for the creature to become aware of Grogu's presence. Din tells Grogu to escape and to get Bo-Katan for help. Grogu is able to evade a shot of electricity from the creature and enter his pod. On the way to the ship, another Alamite appears and blocks the exit of the cave. Grogu force pushes him out of the way, which again is a moment that shows how his training has enhanced his abilities. Ultimately, he is able to get to the ship safely, and points to the scope to direct R5 to Kalevala. Back in the castle, Bo-Katan sits upon her throne when a servant droid alerts her of an incoming ship. Once she sees it's Din's N1 Naboo starfighter, she begrudgingly goes out to get rid of him. Although after she sees Din is missing and Grogu is alone, she becomes wary of what happened. Data from R5 is downloaded to pinpoint their last location, and they take off in her ship. As they travel above the ruins of Mandalore, you can see the thoughts of what once was in her face. The destruction of the planet and her people by the Empire was heartbreaking. Following their landing, Grogu guides Bo to where Din was captured. Her overlooking what remains of the Civic Center causes her to reminisce of her old home and the past civilization she cared so deeply for. They travel down and it becomes apparent that Grogu is scared and hesitant about continuing down the path. Bo-Katan notices this and reminds him that he must carry on to save his dad. As they proceed, Bo inquires about the Force to Grogu and mentions her past relations with Jedi. This conversation halts as soon as she notices people lurking above them. She shoots them down and a fight ensues. I love seeing Bo in action and for John to showcase and remind the audience of how skilled she truly is. She expresses to Grogu that the Alamites that attacked them used to live in the surface wastelands beyond the cities. She questions that if they survived, what else may have? This foreshadows a staggering discovery at the end of the episode. Back in the lair, the creature attaches tubing to Din, which appears to be collecting his blood. The creature has similar tubing connected to its primary suit, so it may be harvesting it to help power its survival. As this occurs, Bo-Katan enters with her dual blasters in an attempt to save Din. In response, the creature uses its weapon to electrocute Bo. During this, she takes notice of the darksaber resting in the dirt and grabs it. Once ignited, she easily wields the blade and seemingly defeats the unknown creature. She goes to Din, without realizing the creature remained alive. Its eye opens and it breaks apart from the mechanical body to enter back into the large robotic machine. Din faintly alerts Bo-Katan to watch out, as the machine attacks her. She wields the darksaber fluently to cut down the machine and finish the creature. This was a reminder of how Bo has a history with the darksaber, and understands how to utilize its energy, while Din evidently does not. Din awakens and finds himself in safety with Bo and Grogu. He thanks her for the rescue and states that she was correct about Mandalore not being cursed. However, she refutes this as the destruction of the once profound society has merely just become a memory. Bo offers Din Pog soup, which he has never had. She explains how this is ironic as she and other Mandalorians were raised on it. Din stands up and Bo insists he should rest until they can return to her ship, although he is adamant about completing his mission of redemption. He gathers his belongings, including the darksaber. Even though she had utilized it to defeat the creature, she did not defeat Din in combat to rightfully own it. She knows the importance of the story is what truly matters. Din explains the significance of his feelings towards the Creed, and despite her belief that it is nonsense, he does not give up on wanting to continue on his obligation. He emphasizes how her act of saving him now makes him indebted to her. Due to his unwavering will to proceed, she ends up offering to lead him to the living waters. They walk across the ruins and converse about the past. Bo expresses her pain towards the Mandalorians fighting one another for no good reasoning, causing them to be vulnerable to the Empire. After stating this, the entrance to the mines of Mandalore came into view. As they walk through it, Bo-Katan describes her past of being part of the royal family, and how she once took the Creed in the waters. Being back in the area brought forth memories of the rituals and her father, who had perished during the Mandalorian Civil War. After his death, it was her sister Satine, who took control of the throne. Once they arrived at the living waters, Bo-Katan reads the ancient plaque inscription on the stone wall. It said, "These mines date back to the age of the first Mandalore. According to ancient folklore, the miners were once a mythosaur lair. Mandalore the Great is said to have tamed the mythical beast. It is from these legends that the skull signet was adopted and became a symbol of our planet. Din approaches the water and removes his cape and weapons. Slowly, he steps into it and begins to recite the words of the creed. Bo-Katan watches him and looks to be reminded of the vows she once took. As he is close to being fully submerged, he vanishes instantly. Bo-Katan rushes to his aid and dives in the water, searching for him in the dark depths. She finds him at the bottom and starts to travel to the surface. As her jetpack directs her back, her light on her helmet exposes a creature in the dark waters, an ancient mythosaur. She gasps at this stunning discovery, but is able to make it to the surface with Din. The episode ends as she looks in the waters, contemplating what she just found. This legendary creature is going to have some major implications moving forward in the show. When discussing the Mandalorian prophecy, the armorer told Din, the songs of eons past foretold of the mythosaur rising up to herald a new age of Mandalore. Sadly, it only exists in legends. All other Mandalorians at this time seem convinced that this ancient creature is simply a legend and extinct, but we now realize it is alive in the layer told by the folklores. The symbol of the mythosaur in taming the legendary creature would seem to hold more weight than having the Darksaber due to its rich history. Bo-Katan desperately wishes to rightfully rule and unite her people, so will taming the mythosaur be the path to do so? Or will Din be the one to accomplish this feat? Also, do you think Bo only saved Mando so she can formally challenge him for the Darksaber fairly in front of others to reclaim her title? This episode makes it obvious how her past is far more deeply rooted in the traditions and the culture of the Mandalorian people. How do you want to see this play out? Overall, I love this episode and felt seeing Mandalore in live action was amazing. In addition, the final reveal of the mythosaur was insane, and I'm so excited to see what comes next. If you enjoyed my first breakdown video, please like and subscribe for more future Star Wars content. And as always, may the Force be with you all.